Hey there. Welcome to this month's episode of the Fraternus Forge podcast. My name is Mathew. I'm your host. Really excited to be here with you this month. It is January of 2023. It is a new year. I'm excited. I hope you're excited. We're going to hit the ground running with some great content for you. Starting, our first guest this year is Brendan McCauley. Brendan lives here in Nashville. He's a recent transplant from the Olympia, Washington area. He holds a master's in Theological Studies for Marriage and Family from the Pontifical John Paul II Institute in Washington, D.C., and he's certified from the Theology of the Body Institute in Quarryville, Pennsylvania. So all that to say, he knows a lot about marriage and family and dating. He's certified, and he's been giving talks on those subjects for the past 5 years to, I think, hundreds of thousands of people, myself included, and multiple folks in the young adult Catholic community here in town. And yeah, I've wanted to have him on the podcast for a little bit, and our schedules finally lined up to make this episode and bring it to you. And the focus of this conversation is attraction. We start the conversation by building that composite of what is attraction, what are the factors that make it up, whether it's appearance, personality, values, as well as our own perception, which can sometimes be distorted by our own woundedness and the paths that we've walked up until we've met this person that's in front of us. So once we build out that definition of what attraction truly is, we then set about defining some ways that you can really make sure to see the composite. How do I meet this person where they are? How do I bring Christ to this person and really see them as a whole instead of just one aspect of who they are? And this was an awesome conversation. Like, I don't say this lightly. This may be my favorite conversation that we've had on this show. It was awesome. I definitely see myself coming back to this episode multiple times in the coming weeks and months, because I feel like staying calibrated and staying aimed at heaven when it comes to dating and marriage and vocation is really, really important, because just speaking personally, I find that it's really easy for me to slip into more secular modes of thinking about those things if I'm not like really being deliberate about, okay, God, I need to be thinking about you in this equation as I'm pursuing my vocation. So yeah, that's the conversation in a nutshell. So grateful to you for listening. Thank you so much for being here every month. The fact that you're listening, the fact that you've sent maybe a couple of notes and said, hey, like, I really like this episode. Thank you so much for making it. Or have you thought about doing something like this? Or an episode on this topic? That's really encouraging for me. And yeah, it's what keeps me going. Like, knowing that this thing is useful and knowing that it's touching people's lives, even if it's like 10 people a month, even if it's 5 people a month. I feel like I'm talking to God in the book of, what is it? It's like, God, will you save the city for 40 people? Will you continue the podcast for, anyway. So yeah, just wanted to say thank you. Really means a lot that you're here. Really means a lot that you're listening. Thank you. You're part of what makes this possible. So thank you. And that's it. Let's jump into it.
The first thing that comes into my mind is being drawn to something that moves us towards it. And this is when the culture, what comes to my mind is the culture is holding out, at least with dating, sexual attraction, is follow wherever your attractions lead you. As if the compass of morality or what is good or bad is just whatever you're drawn to, and then just act on that. And so that's the problem, I think, because as Catholic Christians, we recognize our attractions have become disordered and out of tune. So we are attracted to things that we shouldn't be attracted to. Or I'm attracted to things in women that I should not be attracted to. And we were talking about this yesterday a little bit when we were prepping for this, is that there are times when I am not attracted to holiness, which is not, holiness is objectively attractive, but it's my heart that is out of tune.
Right. Totally agree with you. Like, I do see this in the culture where it's like, if it feels good, do it. Or if it feels good, like, believe in it, you know? And I think the temptation of the culture is to take attraction, whatever our heart is like stirring or drawn towards, like you said, at face value. If I'm drawn to this, it must be a good thing. It must be objectively right. But then the things that can sometimes cloud that are our perception. Things can influence our perception, and we'll talk more about that in the podcast, and then or just later on. And then there's also identity as well, where to your point about our attractions becoming disordered, like if there's something in my identity that is a separation from Christ, if there's part of my identity which is fallen, which is true for everybody, it can cause me to discount something that might be good and holy for me.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, because this is also like God, for example, in regards to dating and even say marriage, God may have someone for you, and God knows what you want more than what you want. And so sometimes we think within, as a man, wanting to date women, I may think I'm attracted to these type of women, when in reality, God is like, no, you're not. You don't even know yourself.
Right.
As much as I know you. And so, like, I've had that many times where I've gone after a woman who, and sometimes we don't even know why we're attracted to certain people.
Yep.
And sometimes we can name it, but sometimes we can't. But then where we have maybe friends and family who say, like, dude, I don't know.
I don't think this is right.
I don't think it's right.
Yeah.
And they're seeing it through more of a clear lens, maybe, because who knows what I'm attracted to? Because we can be attracted to woundedness and brokenness, and like, and we talked about this yesterday, where and this is just me in my own like personal life. There can be times if a girl is a partier, or if a girl is kind of like careless, like there's something in me that finds that maybe exciting or attractive when it's like, okay, why? And I may not know why, but I can recognize, okay, there's something off in me. I shouldn't necessarily be attracted to a woman who's just careless.
Yeah, definitely. I like that you brought up the outside looking in sort of perspective, because that's happened to me where I've been just obsessed with somebody, just consumed with this, like, oh, I'm so attracted to this person, and then like the same sort of pattern repeats itself, like and I think when those patterns repeat themselves of just disappointment or unhealthy interactions with members of the opposite sex, it may be time to question, like, okay, what's happening within me that is causing this pattern to repeat itself? Because I can blame it on them, sure, but I'm the common denominator across these interactions. What's going on? And then also being able to like look at other relationships, because if it's somebody else's, like my brother, for example, dated this girl, I think back in 2015, and she was just like really mean and like really abusive to him, and they stayed together way longer than I expected them to. And I was like, what are you doing, dude? It was so easy for me to say that, but he was like, oh, but we're working it out, like it's fine, Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I mean, what comes to my mind when you say that is, I know people who will date someone who it's almost like a fixer-upper, where not on a very like personality level, our personalities click. Physically, we're really attracted to one another. We have a great time together. But then you look at the deeper values that you really want in a person. Say what matters most to them. Faith, family. All
how they
stuff.
run their life and their structures and their habits.
That's right. And it's at what point are you just dating someone just to try to mold them into who you want them to be, rather than dating the person who they actually are right now. And so it can get attraction. It can be tricky. Very like, why am I attracted to this person? Is it because of good reasons that this person has good values in them and I'm really drawn to them? Or is it like I'm drawn to brokenness in them that, or even just this, I'm dating you. Why? Because you make me feel happy. And now it's all about you. And that's not dating at all. And especially like we know that dating is about discerning. Really, marriage with another person is about getting to know the person to see if this is going to be a lifelong commitment in the future. That's what it is. It's not just about having fun, simply. So attraction matters.
And being able to, I like that you called out, like being able to explicitly say why I'm attracted to somebody, because when you can say that and like look at it for what it is, it helps you be a little more objective as to, I might be in the right place, or this might not be right.
Yeah.
Might not be something that leads me to holiness. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. And usually I tell people, because I mean, I do a lot of talks on dating or theology of the body, what it means to be a man and a woman. I usually, and I know there's probably going to be some listeners that may disagree, but I usually say, if you don't know the person really, and they ask you on a date, like, why not go on a first date? Because if you base your answer of yes, I want to be with them, or no, I don't want to be with them, based off of physical appearance, then that shouldn't be the foundation or your highest value in a relationship is just appearance. But again, appearance does matter. Like physical attraction matters, of course, but you won't ever get to know them if you have a real conversation, if you don't go on a date with them. And so that's usually why I recommend, again, unless you've known them, you've been friends with them for a while, but if you don't really know them, and you're at least somewhat physically attracted to them, like, go on a date with them. It's like, it's not a big deal. Don't make it a big deal. It reminds me of my ex-girlfriend in high school, who every guy thought she was the most attractive woman in the school. And when I saw her, I was not attracted to her at all. And I was like, why does everyone think she's like the most beautiful woman in the school? And then I talked to her and I started to get to know her, and I was like, wow, like, this girl is
next level,
beautiful.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want to be with her. And but what it does is, and this is, I'm going to try to break this down, but what it did for me is, through getting to know her unique person, it made me see her physical appearance differently. It like brought that to light even more, because John Paul II says the body expresses the person. And so it made me see her differently in her totality once I got to know her.
Yeah, I like some of the like ideas that we're throwing around here. Like, I like a lot of what you just said, especially the emphasis on sort of this composite picture of the person, instead of looking at just one dimension, where it's like, I'm looking at this person's appearance, yes or no. That's an underinformed decision. It might be accurate. You might come to the same conclusion, but you can be more certain in your answer if you have a better idea of the composite.
That's right. Or even like, I mean, I bet you've had experience. I think everyone's had experience where they see someone and they are like, oh my gosh, this person is so beautiful or attractive. And then you talk to them and you're like, huh. And
I have that effect on people. It's difficult. It's real rough.
Yeah, we all do. But you know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't even think of this, but it reminds me of the movie Grown Ups. I don't know, have you ever seen the movie Grown Ups?
That's with like Adam Sandler.
Adam Sandler, Kevin James.
Yeah.
So
Mall Cop.
Yeah. So he's a Mall Cop as well. But so they go to the pool, the water park, and all the women are sitting in their chairs, and there's this man across. Do you know this scene?
I actually haven't seen the movie.
Okay.
But
this man, he is like, he's just ripped. He's ripped and physically just super attractive, and all these women are kind of like drooling over him.
Sure.
And all these women are married, by the way, as well. So probably not good. But the man then walks over to them, and he has this high voice, like really high voice, like squeaky high voice. And then the women start laughing.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, but what that is saying is that getting to know the person, who they are, can change your attractions towards them. And that's why it's so important to get to know the person. Rather than judging, I'm attracted to him, I'm not attracted to him, based off of just seeing their physical appearance.
Because our minds will sometimes fill in those gaps. Like, if we see one piece of information, like if it was the other way around, if the two of us were at, I don't know, this pool or something like that, and saw like a woman in a swimsuit, for example, and it's like, wow, she looks amazing. It's really easy for our brain to sort of like fill in the gaps. I bet she's got like a really great personality. Yeah. Maybe she paints, or like she's probably got her life together and is super organized and fit and all that stuff. And like, that's our brain filling in the gaps and making assumptions, which is something our brain is programmed to do because it tries to simplify the world.
And then we get into fantasy.
Right.
We
Into
get
fantasy.
which is not real. Getting to know the person will help you discover what you're really attracted to.
Mm-hmm.
So that's also good because you can just be in your room all day thinking about what you really want, what you really like, when in reality, again, you may not actually want that until you're actually encountering it in the flesh with a real person. And so but then that also means you have to show your true self as well. And that becomes more of a discernment of what you're really attracted to, what you want in a relationship is allowing yourself to be known and seeing another, but
yeah, I totally agree. There's more to be gained in dating than just the immediate, like, I am getting to know someone who might be my spouse. There's obviously that benefit, but then you're also getting to know in general what you're attracted to, and then you're also getting to know in general who you are as a person. It's like, if I show up in this way, it's like, wow, I've been on dates where I'm like, wow, I don't feel great about myself right now. I feel like I'm kind of filtering everything that I say, and I don't feel super free or super loose.
Or yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I just that's interesting because I almost got engaged to someone. And I was dating them for 7 months. Over 7 months, and we were really kind of starting to talk about, like, I think this could be it. This is it.
Yeah.
And we ended up breaking up, just due to, like, really getting to know one another. That's what it was. And my cousins afterwards, they didn't tell me this during it. I wish they did. But they told me afterwards, Brendan, when we saw you around her, it felt like you weren't you. Like you weren't yourself. And dating should bring out the best version of yourself.
Yes.
And I've met friends, or I've had friends who are dating someone and they're totally different. Whether that means they're just absolutely whipped. And it's like my friends and I joke about, like, being whipped. I was like, this is kind of funny, like a collar around you, like you're this dog that's just being, like, and it's like, okay, that's
electric fence.
You're not free. You're not free there at all. And so, you should become the best version of you. But then it's also, it reminds me of how often we try to become what we think others are going to be attracted to. So I may, whether it's like, okay, I'm interested in this girl, and okay, she's dated this guy in the past. She's attracted to these type of guys. Therefore, I'm going to have to mold myself into something that she's going to be attracted to.
Right.
Well, then you're not yourself. You're putting on a false front, false mask, and that's going to die out because you can't put on a false mask for your whole entire relationship.
Right.
It's going to come down. And
it's exhausting, number one, and number two, even if you can keep up with the energy exertion of maintaining that mask, you are going to be a fraction of what you could be otherwise. And you're going to have a bad time, like, if you're just in that space constantly.
Yeah. So why do you think we do that? Why do you think we want to put on a show, put on a false image, so that whether it's a woman is going to be?
Well, yeah, I think part of that is everyone wants to be, like, known and loved, and we've got an idea in our heads of what love actually is. And as long as we're in our rooms just sort of ruminating on what being known and being loved in that way looks like, it's probably going to deviate from what true love and true, like, communion with another person looks like. So it's like, I can be drawn to a woman who has a beautiful physical appearance, maybe has, like, some sort of level of influence in, like, a social media space or something like that. And my reasons for being attracted to her are broken because I'm being drawn to, like, I'm filling in the gaps of who I think she is. And then I'm also conflating my own desire for, like, status and influence. Like, if I was to date this woman, then that sort of confers value and goodness upon me, like, by means of association.
Yeah. Or it's just even, like, the whole idea of a gold digger. Like, why am I with you? Because you have money.
Right. Exactly.
Like, sure, you're fine, you're but the real reason, if you didn't have that money, I would not be with you.
Right.
Well, that's kind of messed up.
Right. And that's where I think the performance like starts from. So if you are truly there because you like enjoy the other person's company and like you are at ease when you're around that person, then I feel like truly being known and loved in that way is easier because you don't have to put on this front.
Yeah. Totally.
Versus, and I think we all know that on some level. Some of us know that explicitly, like we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Others know it subconsciously.
Yeah.
Like, I think everyone to some degree knows that the other person has to come, like your relationship to the other person has to come first, as opposed to your relationship to the person's status or your relationship to the person's wealth.
That's right. Yeah. And I also want to say this.
Yeah.
Status and money, like those are good things.
Yeah.
So it's not like no, women are attracted to a man who has security.
Sure. Yeah.
Like that is a good thing.
Yep.
Like if a man has no money at all, like, yeah, you're not going to want to be with him.
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to be able to provide.
Right.
And so money matters. And it's like all these things, whether it's status, career, like that should be an expression of who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Not like their identity is in those things, but it shows them about who they are. So those can be attractive things. But if you're basing it simply on that, then that's when it becomes an issue.
I think, yeah, there's a lot of different terms that we're throwing around here, and I'd love for us to start building a more like concrete framework for in a way. What I would love for us to do is have like almost like a review sheet, right? By the end of this, where someone listening to this podcast could be like, okay, I've looked at the values element of this person. I've looked at the, like, I guess, status or appearance or personality element of this person. I've looked at my own brokenness. Like, I'd love for us to start building that framework, because I think we talked earlier about don't make a decision on somebody until you feel like you've got a good sense of who they are as in composite, not just their physical appearance, not just their personality, not just this. But then one additional layer to that is when you've got that composite, make sure that you're weighting things appropriately. So like if I know someone who's like super holy and devout, but doesn't have a lot of money, or like doesn't have a lot of status, or is not maybe the most physically gorgeous person in the world, versus if I know someone who's like physically gorgeous and not as devout, not as holy, I should be weighting holiness above physical attraction. I would love for us to build like a framework, and it's like a working framework of all the different data points that you should get as you're getting to know a person. Because like we said earlier, you want to have that full composite before you say like yes or no to somebody. But then you also want to make sure that you're weighting each of those areas appropriately.
It's right.
Not to say that like, oh, like physical appearance shouldn't count for anything, but if you're valuing physical appearance above holiness, that I think is a problem.
That's right. That gets into what you want. Like at the end of the day, if you're dating, you should be wanting to get married and have a family one day. So then it's okay. What are the highest values that I am attracted to and want in a person? Holiness. I mean, probably, faith, common faith. And but again, that gets into sometimes we're not attracted for some odd reason. Who knows why? But then it's, because this is what I was thinking. I've known people who have said, or not necessarily said it explicitly, but they just kind of, this is what it sounds like, is like, are you dating someone who is really faithful? They have a great faith. They would be a great mother. Okay, then awesome. Marry them. When it's like, wait. Are you in love with them? Is there a fiery passion with them? Oh no, I don't have. Okay, then that's probably a sign. Like,
just let them go.
You got to have the fiery passion.
Right.
Like, you have to have that. How you get that, it just happens to you. I mean, when you fall in love, it's not like you choose to fall in love. It just happens to you.
You sort of are walking. I think C.S. Lewis calls it walking along and falling into a pit or something like that. Yeah.
I haven't heard that. I'll have to check that out.
Somebody calls it that, but
but it's like my experience, I'm attracted. there are certain women who really attract me, and I have no idea why. It's weird. It's really weird. I have no idea why, but that kind of gets to the point. It just kind of happens to you. But then we're not going to get into this topic, but what does it even mean to fall in love? What does that even, it's much deeper than just butterflies, because it grows through time. But again, yeah, I mean, you have to love and enjoy. They have to be like your best friend.
There has to be that draw. I've heard it called the X factor before. We're like, have you ever met someone who, and we will get into the framework here in a second. I know we keep talking about it, but like, have you ever met someone who has all of the things, who like, not to sound crass, but like checks all of the boxes, like same values, great personality, like physically attractive, all of the things, and you just like don't feel that
the power.
There isn't a power there,
like, which is just like that fire, or what, like whatever you want to call it, that passionate love. Like, if it's not there, that's something to look at. That was ultimately with some of my last girlfriends. It's like, at the end of the day, I mean, like I'm like thinking, like, sometimes it happens to you immediately, but sometimes you'd start dating them, and after a couple months, it's like, now
then
you're
it
feeling
happens.
that. So it's not like, oh, after a month you should feel it or not. It's like, no, it's gonna be different for everyone, and but again, what does that mean and all that? But you should want to be with them, like really want to be with them.
Yes,
you're thinking about them, not in a fantasy way, but they're on your mind.
I've heard a couple of things on this front. Like, I know what you're talking about, where like there isn't that passionate sort of chemistry that the culture wants so badly. If it's not there immediately, the culture says just walk away from this person. But a healthier mindset might be, ask yourself these 3 questions, and then if so, like really give the person a chance, and then see if those feelings come later. The first question is, does this person inspire me towards holiness? Is this person leading me towards holiness through their example, through our conversation, etc.? There's that. Then can I see this person being the mother or father of my kids? Like, would this person be a good mother or father? And then lastly, is this someone who is going to stick out a marriage commitment through thick and thin? Like, does this person have, I guess, stamina in that regard? And if the answers to those questions are yes, then give it some more time. Now, that said, I also have talked to people, and I've even been in relationships where that draw and that power wasn't there, but I pushed myself and I forced myself, like, I gotta keep going because like this person hits all of these boxes, so it must be something just missing in me. And I don't think that's right either. It's like sometimes you want it to work. It's like you're with them and it's like they have everything.
I have a friend who is like, why the heck, like, she checks off all the boxes, like why am I not just like super excited about this? Is it me? Is it her? Is it like, what is it? And sometimes you don't know. You just don't know. And it's like, we want to fall in love. Like, everyone wants to fall in love. But sometimes we want it so much that we will, like, as if we can create it. And it's like, that you can't create that. It just happens.
I love the way that you put that. It's almost like I hesitate to call like love itself a sacrament, or just that feeling of attraction a sacrament. But in a way, I almost feel like there's some grace, and there's like, you know how like vocation is described as a call that you respond to? It's almost like there's that call. It's like God's just boom. This is the way, walking it.
So that's, Thomas Aquinas actually says everything. He literally, when people say love makes the world go round, Thomas Aquinas actually says that is literally what is happening, like philosophically. And he says love is to desire the good and want to be united to the good. And so it always happens outside of us, the movement. So, for example, I'm drinking coffee. The coffee is actually speaking to me, and then it moves me to unite with it. So that's love right there. So
sentient coffee.
And so when there's a a woman, I see a good in her that is coming to me.
Yes.
And I'm drawn and attracted to it.
Yes. It's a response.
Yeah. So I respond. Yeah, it's a response. It's not something that I create. And I think that can be, I know that's kind of more philosophically, but I think it's what falling in love is. It's something outside of you is
speaks to you.
Is speaking to me.
Yeah.
And it's drawing me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're drawn to something.
Yeah, and then it happens.
And it's something that you almost like we keep saying, like, it's not something that you can create. It's something that just kind of happens.
That's right. Yeah.
And I think in that way, like, the view that we're building of attraction and relationships does have something in common with the culture where we do want that deep sense of attraction.
Yep.
I think the difference is that the culture cuts bait too soon.
Yep.
And we need to like stay in that spot and give ourselves a chance to feel that before we cut bait. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, the cut bait?
What I mean by cut bait, it's like if you're fishing.
Yeah.
Like, cutting bait would be just like cutting the line. I'm done fishing here. Like, that's enough. I'm done spending time here. Yeah. Gotcha. So the culture is someone who like throws the line in the water and is like, I haven't caught anything in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm cutting bait.
Yep. Or the like that draw of love that happens when we see something good needs to be purified.
Yes.
Like, this goes back to what the culture says. It's, if anything appears good to me, therefore I'm going to go at it. It's like, okay, no, that's not what we're saying at all. It's like, that needs to be purified. Our attractions need to be purified because, I think it's like I said before, it's important to ask, why am I drawn to this person? What is it about them? And it's really discerning that, because you can easily say, like, lust. Like, lust is drawing me to this person. Yep. It's not love. It's not true good.
Dude, I love that. Yeah. I think you're spot on. I know we keep talking about, like, this framework for how we decide or sort of analyze why we're drawn to somebody. So let's jump into the framework. The way that we've got it split up here is values and goals. So there's 3 different sections that we're going to look at. There's values and goals. There's personality and appearance. And those 2 things, like, each one of these sort of groups kind of ties in on itself. So, like, values and goals tie in together, personality and appearance tie in together. And then the last group is perception, identity, and brokenness. And all 3 of those things kind of tie in together. So looking at values and goals first, I'm sure most of the folks listening have a sense of, okay, if you're dating, there are questions that you need to ask. And I think that that's valid, and I think that that's right, because asking those questions help you get a sense of where this person has been, where this person is now, and where this person's going, and whether or not there's like a shared commonality, if it makes sense for you to journey with this person. Does that sound right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's really like Jason Everett, who speaks a lot to high schoolers on dating, he'll say to the women, like, women, ask yourselves, how does this man treat his sister, his mom, other women he's dated? Who does he hang out with? That will tell you a lot about who he actually is. And you can say that, vice versa. Jason Everett also says, like, okay, man, if the woman who you're attracted to, say every woman looked like that, looked like her, why are you drawn particularly to her? And so you need to be asking really important questions. But I think kind of what we have here, the big ones, is just even like family. Like, how's their relationships with their parents, their brothers, their sisters, their close friends? Like, how are they as a friend? And if you can see a lot. And I'm just thinking it can be hard. We can be disappointed because, like, you spend one-on-one time with someone and you're like, wow, like, this person's incredible. Yep. But then you start to see how they may treat others. And you're like, this is interesting. Where's, but I don't know. What are your thoughts?
You're 100% right. I agree with all of this. I've heard it's sort of a cliched example, but it's like if you go out to dinner with somebody, pay attention to how they treat the wait staff, because in some ways that's going to be you in the future, because like you're there to serve each other to some extent. If you go to visit like a girl's family, for example, pay attention to how her mom treats her dad, because eventually that's going to be the two of you. And vice versa. Like that also will give you some indicators about like what she's expecting from you in the relationship, and sort of what you can expect from her in the relationship as well in terms of behavior and interactions. And it's not to say that if you come from different backgrounds with different expectations, like let's say that I grew up in a really matriarchal household, which I didn't, but let's just say I did. And let's say that she grew up in a very patriarchal household. So in my house, mom was the head of the house and dad was more supportive. In her house, dad was the head of the household and mom was more supportive. That difference, though not irreconcilable, may cause some challenges for you as you interact with each other as a couple. So I may be expecting to be a little more passive, whereas she might be looking for someone to be more of a leader.
Yeah.
That's just one example of what we're getting at here. Does that track?
Totally, yeah. And I'm just thinking of like, in regards to family dynamics, of maybe you meet someone and they're like, I don't even talk to my parents. You know, you definitely don't want to just make a judgment based off of that statement, but you want to know more. Okay, well, you know, why is that?
Yeah.
Because there may be real reasons where it's like, it's not healthy for you to really talk to your dad or talk to your mom based off of their circumstance. But what comes to my mind is the person you're attracted to or dating, are they willing to go on the journey to want to heal relationships, want to become better, and they're working at it? You know, rather than throwing in the towel, I give up, I'm running away. It's like, okay, like, you know, you want to be with someone who's willing to and is trying to be the best version of who they are, and to bring healing to their family, to their friends, you know. Because there's not going to be a perfect girl. For girls, there's not going to be a perfect man. So stop thinking about it. I mean, it's just not real. Okay.
Right.
I mean, sure. Jesus and Mary. Okay.
Right.
But like, or this is even the like, I found out my girlfriend slept with so many guys in college. Or this is her upbringing. This is how she was raised. She was raised in this, you know,
dad was an alcoholic or something like that.
We can fear that. We can just be repulsed instantly and like, no. I want a girl who is in this box. She's a virgin. She's always been Catholic. She's a good girl. It's like, okay, no, that's not right at all. Based off a person's past. You're dating who the person is now. Okay. So it's like, we're all broken. We're all wounded. And that's going to be in the relationship. And again, you're going to have to then discern where they're at in the healing journey. If it's worthwhile to take a step back to seek more healing. But you shouldn't just discard someone because, this is your past. I'm going to discard you. It's like, no, you know, a person's sin doesn't
define them.
That's not, John Paul II says you're not the sum of your weakness and your sin and your failings. Your identity, the sum of who you are, is the Father's love for you. And that's every person, no matter what their past is. And so I don't think, I mean, sure, like hearing about, you know, say you're dating someone for months and months and you begin to reveal intimate places of your heart, brokenness, woundedness.
And that's going to happen no matter like who you're dating. Like no matter how good or bad a person may seem, there's always going to be some level of brokenness included in them. And I think what you're getting at is there's this sort of idea of what somebody needs to look like, this idealistic notion. And what we need to do is set that aside, maybe take some indicators as to like, I value this, this, and this. But also remember that you're dealing with a human, and humans by definition are broken.
And should be in all of their brokenness loved there. So this reminds me of a story I told you of my ex-girlfriend when a woundedness came out in her. I was unattracted. Remember
I think so, yeah.
So
I think I do remember you saying that.
So I was with her family, and this gets at the point of what we're talking about with woundedness. I was hanging out with my girlfriend and her family, and she was being immature. And I felt really unattracted, like repulsed by it. Like I didn't want to be around it. And I went and I talked to Christopher West, and I was like, "Can you help me out here? Like,
what am I missing?
What's going on? Like, it's really concerning. Like how she was acting." And what he said is, "Brendan, this is you. This is you." And I was like, "What?" I was like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "This is not sure. There's a woundedness in her that's coming out, and you're seeing it. But you being unattracted and repulsed." That's what he said to me. He said, "Brendan, you use the word unattracted to her woundedness." He's like, "That's you." And he said, "Oftentimes, you being unattracted by a wound in another person is you not loving yourself in a certain place." So you're rejecting a wound. A wound comes out in a person, and you reject it. You don't want to get near it. That's often a sign of you rejecting a wound in yourself, and you don't want to see it. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is a whole different way of seeing it." And then he said, "Jesus loves us in our woundedness when they come out." So it actually attracts him to us. And so it was just this like wake up call. It's because it's oftentimes when someone does something you don't like, I want to get away. I want to move away. An unattraction. When in reality, we should look deeper and see that whatever a person may be doing may be an expression of a deeper wound, and it should lead you to love them mercifully and compassionately. And it's just like, well, that's a whole different way of being in a relationship. Like, that's a whole different way of seeing the person, of what real love is. Real love is not just about lovey-dovey and fluffy. Sure. Messy. It's freaking messy. And you show your mess to a person you trust, but who will embrace you compassionately and mercifully. So that's a whole, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. I track with a lot of that. I actually am thinking of an experience that I had like within the past year where I went on a couple of dates with somebody and experienced a similar degree of immaturity to what you're describing. Like I saw her as being, "Oh wow, you're like not as developed. Maybe you need to grow up a little bit." And there was that repulsion that you're describing. And if I'm being totally real with you, like I feel that in myself sometimes. I feel like socially behind sometimes. I judge myself because like K through 8, for example, I was homeschooled and my only classmates were my brothers, and like my mom taught all of us. And so when I actually got to high school, I just went through a lot of growing pains because I was behind socially, hadn't been interacting with like a broader swath of kids for that amount of time, and just felt a ton of shame about it. And that's a wound that I carry. And so when I see that reflected in other people, it's really easy for me to be like, well, this person is not worthy of my whatever time, whether they're like a romantic interest or just a friend. When in actuality, me rejecting that person for that wound is also me rejecting myself for the same wound or a similar wound. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like it could be.
Could be.
And so, yeah, like what I discovered when I prayed through this, of like, okay, why with my girlfriend why was I unattracted? What is that saying about me and my brokenness? And what I came to discover is it's my perfectionism. I have to, and what the lie that Satan has whispered in me is, I have to be perfect in order to be loved, in order to be wanted and attractive. I have to be perfect. And so that's what I'm saying about her. It's like, if you're not perfect, if you don't live up to these standards, therefore I'm not attracted to you. And which is just, it's wrong.
Unfair.
It's just wrong. It's not real. It's, and,
I totally agree, 100%. And just for clarity, this is not saying that if you meet somebody who's wounded, accept and embrace them and like continue dating them regardless of like the dysfunction that plays out between you. Like there's a difference between like pursuing someone romantically and like embracing them in their woundedness. Like, I would say embracing someone in their woundedness is part of like pursuing them and continuing to build relationship with them, but you don't necessarily have to do that part. So that takes some discernment. Like, okay, what level of dysfunction is there in the relationship? Are we coming together as a unit, or is this driving us apart and causing more aggravation?
Yeah. So this is really good. This is because for dating and to learn about your attractions, you have to show yourself.
Yep.
And you have to see another who they truly are.
Yep.
And you don't blurt out all your woundedness on the first date. That's just imprudent.
Wait,
just
do you not do that? I don't do that.
Usually I do that. So you get to know them, and through getting to know, your wounds are beginning to be exposed. And so it is an absolute requirement to learn how to love rightly. Even in a dating, and that is to get ready. Wounds are going to come out. And learn how to love mercifully and compassionately. It is required for a relationship. It's not an option. And then all that being said, you're beginning to know what you really want. But it can become like a gray area because it's so, each person is so unique, and to where you have to discern, okay, because there could be a wound that gets exposed in a relationship where we may need to take a step back. Say, like you shouldn't enter marriage, and even some would argue dating if you have an addiction. The smart thing is there can't be a perfection before you get married. You're not going to be perfect before you get married, but there needs to be, and there's no line. I can't say like, oh, you got to be a 5 out of 10 of healed.
Sure.
Like but there are certain things where it's like, okay, like we probably should take a step back compared to like, we're never going to be perfect, and we need to learn how to love mercifully.
And so what should someone who's discerning marriage with another person, or discerning like a committed relationship with another person, when it comes to this topic of woundedness, how would you go about deciding that, yes, I'm in a place to continue pursuing this person? Like, we are in a place as a couple where it makes sense to continue moving forward in spite of our brokenness. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, so...
And it's not necessarily... It's not necessarily has to be a one-size-fits-all. And I think it's going to differ by situation. But what were some of the things that you might look for?
Where it's like, okay, this may be a reason to take a step back.
Right.
You're saying?
Yeah.
Well, that is a really, really hard question. And there could be many, many reasons. So this gets in a hole. So like, I mean, the big thing just throwing it is like a porn addiction.
Sure.
That could. I mean, you can't enter a marriage with a porn addiction. You can't, or just even like an alcoholic addiction or any type of drug addiction. Like, I mean, I would say that's, you definitely should not marry someone who, I don't even know if we should have this part because it's so,
well, yeah, no, I think you're right. Yeah. I think you're right.
But but I know like
there are yellow flags and there are red flags.
That's right. That's a good way to put it.
And so knowing like a red flag would be something that would pose a serious obstacle.
Yeah.
To actually, this comes from TOB. There's that framework of there's the sanctification aim of marriage. So like the goal is for you and your spouse to get to heaven. There's openness and the creating of the environment for children to be raised in.
Yeah.
And then there's, I guess, the quelling or the satisfaction to some extent of the sexual urge as well. And so if you're encountering something that is going to pose a serious obstacle to one or more of those elements, then it's a red flag. So taking a porn addiction for an example, that poses a serious threat to creating a stable environment for children to grow up in, for sure.
Yeah.
It's going to hurt the intimacy between you and your spouse because they feel like, for whatever reason, the time that you two spend together in communion is not enough. And so they're looking for that satisfaction elsewhere. And then it absolutely poses a threat to both of you getting to heaven. So that's a red flag.
And it's, yes. And we'll take the porn addiction that we're on it.
Yeah.
There could be some people where it's like, oh, they had a porn addiction. I wouldn't even want that. Even if they had it a long time in their past.
Yep.
It's still carried with them. That is, again, that's a wound coming out, and it needs to be embraced with compassion and mercy. But again, where are they in their recovery? Yeah. Like that is and we can't necessarily label it, oh, you haven't looked at porn for 2 months, 5 months, a year. Like there's not going to be, because you can, again, Jesus says, if you look at a woman lustfully, you've committed adultery in your heart. So even though you haven't looked at pornography, your mind may be consumed by lust to where that's just how you operate. And so that gets into a very gray question, and that's why I mean, in my opinion, it's very important to have good friends, maybe a spiritual director, people you look up to who can really help you make consult. These decisions. Yeah. Because, say you're in the middle of a dating relationship and you find out about someone's past and a little bit more about what they've experienced or been exposed to, and this is where they're at, and you're like, I don't know what to do about this. You're discerning it with their whole family, like, and their friends, your family, and because if you choose to marry someone, you're embracing their whole reality. It includes family, friend, everything. Their past, their present, their future. Yeah. And so, I mean, discernment can be difficult. It also can be simple, but there's difficult parts that you just, to navigate whether this is right or wrong, whether you're making an irrational decision based off of X, Y, or Z. The question of, can you date someone who's not Catholic? Well, okay, are they atheist and a radical atheist? And you're just thinking maybe they'll be open. Like that can also be a factor. The reason why it's so important to have folks around you who can consult you through these decisions, like we sort of said earlier, it's really easy for our own vision to be clouded in these circumstances, our own perception, which is something that, like we sort of mentioned earlier on in the episode. Yeah. Our own perception can be clouded because our own identity has been wounded. So as we're experiencing wounds, or as we're experiencing this other person, our perception is clouded because there's chemicals floating around in our brains, our identity is broken. And so what we think we want might oftentimes is not what we actually need. And so having people on the outside who can be like, listen, Brendan, I don't think you're being you. Yeah. Listen, mate, I don't think you're making a wise choice. Yeah. Like, what's that from? I used to go to a non-dom church, and our pastor was Australian. Listen, mate. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, no, like there was a girl who I was like in love with, and I was like, in my mind was like, I want to marry this girl. And she like brutally rejected me without just didn't respond ever. Yep. And everyone there's still a part of me where it's like, oh, I still want her, or this kind of obsessive mindset, and my family and friends and spiritual director is like, no, like you don't want a woman who would do that to you. Like that's not what you actually want. But I may think in my mind, no, it is what I want. So other people can help us. Like, yeah, we can be in our own heads at times, and it's like it's clouded, and we just need people who we trust to be like, no, I don't think this is right. Yeah, and this gets in the whole like question of why are we attracted to woundedness in a disordered way, or this whole hard to get mentality of like, okay, maybe because this girl didn't respond to me, it made me even more attracted disorderly and more connected in a disordered way.
Yeah, I think that ties in really well to the idea of perception.
Yeah.
So there's this book by a guy named I think his name is Dr. Robert Cialdini. I think I might be saying that right. If I'm saying it wrong, someone can give me crap about it later. But he wrote this book called Influence: The Psychology of Persuasion, and it's like, if you're a marketer, like, obviously this is a must read for you. But as a human being, I think this is also really important, because it sort of talks about the different factors that can be at play on a day-to-day basis that can cloud or influence our perception of how valuable or invaluable things are. And there's 7 different principles. We can talk through them here. One of the ones that I think ties into this hard-to-get idea that you just brought up, which I think is super interesting, and probably, if it's not the most common one that we see in dating, I think it's one of the most common ones seen in dating. It's scarcity. There is a thing, or there is a person, and there is an appearance or a perception that this thing is exclusive, this person is exclusive, they're hard to get, they pose a challenge. To liken it to something, if you've ever seen one of those clubs, like, I don't know, in like a metropolitan center like Chicago or New York or something like that.
Like a club.
Like a club, exactly. Club. Like a dance club or something like that. Like, there's people lined up to get to the door, and then at the front of the door, there's a bouncer with like the velvet rope on the chain. Yeah. And he's looking at a guest list or something like that, and he stands there with the chain. And you don't move until that chain moves. Yeah. That is scarcity. That's exclusivity. We're not just letting anyone in. Yeah. Well, you got to be. And so...
You got to be VIP.
You got to be VIP.
That's what it feels like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that plays out in dating, don't you think?
Yeah. So there could be a girl who says no to you. You ask her on a date, she says no. It's almost like you're not VIP enough. That's what it feels like.
Right.
And that can be, it can. So that's when we make our identity what other people say about us. So if a woman, I ask a girl on a date and she rejects me, what can be whispered in my mind is, you're not VIP.
Yep.
You're not good enough.
Yep.
Yeah, that's our true identity lies in what God says we are. So every human being is VIP.
Yep.
Beloved, good, loved, etc. But there can be that where a woman says no to me, and what could happen is it could spark a challenge. I want to win her heart, and there could be something good in that. Like I want to win her over.
Yeah, it's not to say that scarcity is entirely bad, because if, like, the opposite of scarcity, I guess, I guess if you read modern dating advice, they'll be like, oh, like, don't be too available, or don't be too this. And I think that there's some truth in that, because in order for someone to truly value you, part of what makes a sustainable marriage and a future together, for example, is like feeling like you've won the heart of someone valuable. Yeah. And like there is that element of exclusivity. Yeah. But like there's an unhealthy extent maybe where folks manipulate this element of scarcity. Yeah. Because on one hand I could see it being very healthy to be like, wow, like my wife said no to 3 or 4 other guys, and then I just like, well, I'm gonna give it a shot, and she said yes to me. Yeah. And that makes me feel really, really special.
Yeah, like I'm the best.
Right. That can be a really good thing, and that might bring you closer together in some ways. Yeah.
But the idea of like, oh, I'm the best, that can be twisted. That's like because say a girl, says no to you, and then she says yes to a guy, you could be thinking he's better than me.
Yep.
And it can cause you, it can be good, like in the sense of, okay, I want to become a better version of myself. But then again, why did she say yes to that guy and no to you? It could be the way in which she perceives him and is attracted to him. Yeah. Like there's so many dynamics where, like seriously, like, okay, say you're like a really good and holy person. Say you're an attractive guy or whatever, and a girl says no. Why'd she say no? Maybe because you're not that bad boy. Or maybe you're not mean to her like some girls like.
There's so many interpretations.
And we can't think. We don't want to get into that fantasy of just like, why this, why that. It's like, hey, she said no. She said yes. Like, that's the clarity you have to go by. Right. Like, she said yes to that guy. You don't have to worry about why she said yes. She said yes.
You're 100% right. I agree with all of this. There's objective reality. Yeah. There are the facts that are in front of you. Like, I asked this girl out and she said no. I asked this girl out and she said yes. Yeah. And sure, I can feel like disappointed or elated based on what those things, but like based on how those events sort of play out. But it's important to not take what happens in objective reality through our clouded perception and then apply it to our identity, where like our mind is going to take that information and be like, well, this happened, therefore I must suck.
Yeah. So I'm thinking, do you know who his name's Andrew Tate? Or something like that?
Name's familiar.
Is his name Andrew Tate? Something Tate. He was a MMA guy. He's been he's like become really popular on like social media. There's a video of a girl. He's like of him like a teen, and he has glasses on. He's skinny, and the girl basically said to him like, "You have nothing going for you. Like you're skinny. You're just skinny." Like and what he said is that struck a chord in me, and it made him like now he's like rich, like buff, like all these things. But I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to look into it. Or I don't know the whole perception.
Let's call up Andrew. How's your emotional state?
Yeah.
How's your identity?
But if he created his whole entire future based off of that one statement, it's almost what people say about us. You don't want to take. That's who I am. So if someone says like, "You're skinny," that was me. That was me in college or in high school. You're skinny. What it can make me think is, I'm not good enough. I'm not wanted. I'm not attractive. Therefore, I have to be buff in order to be wanted and attractive. Okay, then now you're living out of a false identity. And that's not good.
You can stop reading from my autobiography at any point you want to.
But it could be good. Like, someone calls you out, a woman says no, or something like, it should make you reflect, okay, I mean, not give you a false identity, but you want to be, as Jordan Peterson says, a man who women are just naturally attracted to. Like, you want to be the best version of yourself. That's who you should become. And challenge is good. Like, we want a challenge. That's why I think there's something luring and something that draws us about the hard to get, or she's not talking to me. I'm at a party and all these women are talking to me, but she's not. Why isn't she? It can make us think these things. And then you think, I want the challenge to win her over.
Right.
When it's like, okay, now you're going down a bad path. It's like, there's a woman right in front of you who's awesome. Like, give her time and talk to her.
That's how the scarcity principle can sort of cloud our judgment of what is truly valuable. We sort of talked about, like, there's all of these elements of a person's personality or their past or their appearance or their holiness. And if perception is becoming the dominant factor, well, I perceive this person as scarce or hard to get, therefore she is valuable, or he is valuable. That's a one-dimensional analysis and not something you should draw conclusions on.
What I think is, if a woman or a man is quote-unquote hard to get, I think what you're really looking for is someone who's confident. They can stand on their own 2 feet. They're not needy. That's what you really want. Because the perfect man is Jesus and say St. Joseph. Great 2 men. They didn't play hard to get. They weren't mean to you. Like, no. Like, but who were they? A confident men. Like, that's what women want. They want a secure, confident man.
That's what we're indexing for when we look at someone who's scarce or hard to get.
Again, we're like, what we're talking about right now is like so complex. Like, I don't know why I'm attracted to these things. I don't know why I perceive these things. I don't know why I feel these emotions. Like, sometimes you just don't know. And it's, and so I think it's different. Like, why I'm attracted to, like I said before, a woman who may be kind of careless. Like, that's something in me that I need to explore and discern. I watched this YouTube video I told you about, where a man went up to some girls in a bar and said to them, what should a man do to get your attention to where you would like him? And one of the women said, if he's super mean to me, if he's just super mean, I would really like that. It's like, okay, like on the surface, that's craziness. Like, what are you talking about? Well, okay, I don't know why she wants that. I don't know what's going on in her. Or the other girl said, if he buys me a drink and then leaves and he doesn't talk to me for the rest of the night, this hard to get, avoiding me, what she said is, I will chase him down. There's something attractive about that. Mm-hmm. Or, you know, we've heard, I'm attracted to the bad girl, or for girls, the bad boy. Mm-hmm. Why do you think there's something I mean, maybe we've already touched on it, but why do you think there's something attractive about badness in a person, or woundedness, or someone who just doesn't, it feels like they don't care?
I think that there's a couple elements to it, and I don't think it's all bad. I don't think our desire, like if we look at the feminine tendency towards dating bad boys, or you know how guys will like see the one girl in the room who's just like, I don't know, super attractive or whatever, and you walk up and you try to talk to her and she sort of just like gives you the look up and down type thing, and then like turns back to her friends. Mm-hmm. Like that's also kind of like the female equivalent of that from a guy's perspective. Yeah. Does that make sense?
I think it goes to the point of they don't care. They don't care about me.
Right. And
like,
go ahead.
And you want them to care about you. Mm-hmm. Like and it can become like I'm mad at them. Mm-hmm.
There's like a visceral response.
They've made me mad. Mm-hmm. And now there is a disordered connection to them through that wound.
Yes.
So you walk away from the party, you walk away from the conversation, you go to bed at night, and you're thinking, I'm mad. And it's like now they've made their way into your brain or your mind or your heart.
Yep.
And this goes to the perception. Now this is how I perceive them. And now every time I see them, I want to try to win them over. I'm going to be careless now. I'm not going to pay attention to them. So,
right.
You know, it can become so messy, and we just create more sin and more wounds.
The spider web continues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's this whole, you hurt me, I hurt you. Mm-hmm. I'm going to have you feel how I felt. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's like,
there's like payback.
That's rupture in relationship. That's not, and so that needs to be healed.
Definitely.
All that needs to, attraction, perception, all of that.
All of it needs to be healed. All of it. And I think one thing when it comes to perception, attraction, identity, wounds, I think, yes, we're obviously like preaching healing in all of these areas. And in addition to that, I think we're also talking a lot about awareness, where I can't just snap my fingers and say like, Brendan, be healed of like your identity challenges and your perception challenges. And like, cause if I could do that, I would have done it for myself a long time ago.
Yeah.
So I think awareness of those places where you're still struggling and have tendencies to like fall into these ruts is really, really important, because that will help you sort of stay grounded when you're in those interactions with someone you're dating or just friends in general.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Coming back to what you said a second ago about this idea of the bad boy, and I'll tie, it's important. It's important. I got something here for you. So, to a limited extent, I think that's okay. I think to a limited extent, we'll talk about the dysfunctional aspect of it here in a second. I think one healthy element of someone like, okay, if you've if you've read like books on like dating and like attraction and stuff like that, one thing that guys were sort of encouraged to do in that space is what's called negging, like you neg a girl. And what that means is if you're talking to her, like being able to playfully tease her, and be like, oh wow, that was a dumb thing. Why did you say that? You know what I'm talking about?
Have you seen Kevin James, the zookeeper? I think it's the zookeeper. So okay, sorry, really quick.
I'm learning that you are a huge Kevin James fan.
I'm not really.
Is that part of your woundedness?
I'm a movie fan.
I'm just playing.
So he liked this girl,
yeah.
And someone got advice. I think a lion who talked. Maybe it was a girl. I don't know. Gave him advice. This is what you need to do. You make fun of her, and then you compliment her. And so he would say, "Gosh, like you got big thumbs," and she'd be like, "What? Well." He's like, "Gosh, you're so beautiful." And then she's like, "Oh, really?" And it's so like, and then she liked him, and he like won her over through like hurting, and then it's like this. That's it's so interesting. I think what were you saying?
Yeah. It is a weird dynamic, and I think some of that does play into like some of the woundedness that we'll get into here in a second. And I have observed that same thing. It's sort of like there's this sort of hurting And then there's this sort of like, oh no, but it's cool, like you're still, and like this sort of dance can be really attractive to some people. Mm-hmm. I think by negging and being willing to like tease somebody, I think what you're signaling is that I'm not a people pleaser. Like I think that's what it's intended to signal. I am sure enough of myself that I'm willing to break rapport and not just say whatever is going to keep the conversation on an even level. I'm gonna like maybe tease you a little bit, but then also like restore rapport. So there's like an element of tension. You have big thumbs. Like you just broke rapport by saying that, but then coming back to, oh no, but you're still cool, or I still like you, or you're still beautiful, whatever, sort of restores rapport. There's tension, restore, and I think that cycle can be attractive, and those signals can be useful in a limited context. Go ahead.
Well, okay, it's also like we all know drama queens or drama kings. Yep. I don't even know if drama kings is a word.
It is now.
Yeah. No, but it's like this whole. Some people love drama.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's an interesting question. Why would someone want a ton of drama in their life? Mm-hmm. Like, oh, there's something exciting about it. There's just something exciting maybe. Mm-hmm. And so that could be the whole idea of tension. I mean, it makes a guy who hurts you and then shows love to you and then hurts you and loves you and doesn't care and then cares, like it's a dramatic relationship.
Yes.
And really it's chaos.
Yes.
But some people are attracted to chaos and love chaos. Mm-hmm. Why? I don't know. Mm-hmm. But that gets into, okay, when we recognize that, because there's, like I said, there's parts in probably all of us that like some type of, why do I like the girl who's avoiding me? Or like I need to explore that because there could be reasons. It's not I can say though, I should not be attracted to that.
Yes.
Like I can say that objectively.
Yes.
But now I need to discern why am I attracted to that?
Yes. And I think I'm glad that you brought it back to that side because I think while there may be some practical applications of like, I don't know, building or breaking rapport with someone, I think a lot of times it's an indication of a wound underneath the surface. That's right. That is why folks are attracted to the girl who's just avoiding me or not giving me the time of day, why girls are attracted to the bad boy. And I think, so I'll use an example from my own life and we can sort of like break it apart. Yeah. So growing up, I felt very much on the outside looking in a lot of the time. And that started as early as maybe like 10 or 11 when my older brother was 13 or 14. And he was starting to like spend weekends away from the house, like going to like sleepovers at other friends' houses. He was starting to see like PG-13 and R-rated movies, things like that. And he was starting to have a little more autonomy in his schedule. And I was like, I want those things. I want to be part of those things. And I would ask my parents for those kind of opportunities. And they said no. And that made me feel like, well, why is he admitted into the VIP club through the velvet rope and not me?
Yeah.
And so then that sort of experience, that was a wound. In those initial no's, that was a wound. And then I experienced...
What do you think, what was the wound? And the lie. What do you, like, was it like a rejection? Like,
I think there's a rejection component, like my father and mother, so there's my biological father and mother, and then also God, because they're representatives of God. Yeah. My parents do not love me. And then because I'm good, I'm weak, I'm stupid, I'm immature, something along those lines.
Those are the lies.
Those
are
the
whispering lies into you,
Exactly. And then because I have those lies as part of my identity, our minds love stability. And our ego loves stability. And so if it finds something that it interprets in a certain way, it will start to look at the world through that same lens and take other experiences as like, here's more proof for why that's true. So if I was rejected in middle school by like my peers or in high school by like this one girl that I was obsessed with, that all becomes additional bricks in the wall where my identity is like, see, here's more proof for why you're weak and stupid.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. And it becomes, what comes to my mind is that can become home.
Yes.
So
100%.
Like, for example, a couple images are coming into my mind. So say you got that wound. That's you being thrown into a prison. Okay, this is what's coming into my mind.
Yep.
And the door's locked.
Yep.
Okay, now this is where you're living in. You're living in this lie-based, wounded-based. And then you keep getting thrown into that. And all of a sudden, you've been in that, and you're living out of that for years and years and years. Mm-hmm. Someone opens the door now and says, hey, you can come out.
You can leave now.
But you still stay.
Yeah.
And it's because this is my home. This is my comfort. This is all I've known.
This is comfortable.
This is all I've known.
Yeah.
With Shawshank Redemption, it describes that where what's the main character's name? I don't know.
It's Morgan Freeman. It's not his name. Yeah.
No, the guy who gets out of the.
I don't come to my mind. I want to say it's not Red. Red is Morgan Freeman's characters. Anyway, go on.
So the main character goes in and he says, "Don't you guys want to leave?"
Yeah.
And at some point, I don't know who says it, but he says, once you get inside of these walls, and we could say woundedness, lie-based thinking, living out of a false lie identity. Once you're in it, he says, you hate it. In the beginning, you hate it. Mm-hmm. But then you get comfortable with it. And then you can't leave it. Mm-hmm. To where that's why the man in the movie, he went and hung himself.
Yeah.
Because he got into the real world, but it was almost as if he didn't know what to do. Mm-hmm. Like it was as if he wanted to go back to the prison because that's all he had experienced. That was his home, quote unquote. Mm-hmm. And that can I don't know, that was kind of a tangent there, but yeah, it goes back to we want stability, and sometimes it's like, well, this is all I grew up with, and it's like to let go, even if that thing's bad, is hard, even if it's bad for you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and 100% agree. There's this wounded part of our identity that has had just so many additional experiences and had so much time to sort of fester that it's become like part of our center. Mm-hmm. And because it's familiar, we keep coming back to that. We keep coming back to it.
Yeah.
And because the ego above everything else, like, values stability.
Yeah.
So like if you were to come to me and say, hey, Matt, everything you thought you knew about the U.S. currency is wrong. Mm-hmm. Everything that you thought you knew about the U.S. dollar is wrong. The future is actually like the Chinese yen here in the States. Mm-hmm. Let's just say. This is a really crazy example.
Yeah.
I am overwhelmed by that statement because literally all of my money is in U.S. dollars. All of my investments are based out of U.S. dollars. I'm working for a company that gives me U.S. dollars.
Yeah, and you may even respond, I don't believe it.
I don't believe it.
So say you grew up your whole entire life and how people treated you was, I'm not loved. Mm-hmm. And my whole experience attests to I am not loved or wanted.
Yep.
Then all of a sudden one day, a woman or a man approaches you with love. You'll like, I'm repulsed by that.
Yeah.
I don't believe it.
Yeah.
It's not real. Like these are strong
forces.
Forces that and it's like it all going back to what you're saying. Like I think when you were talking, it makes me want to say to everyone, like the whole, why am I attracted to this? Why do I perceive this? Mm-hmm. Look inside yourself and what do you think about yourself? Who you are. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like it's because what we're really saying is the root issues of dating, the root issues of why I'm attracted to the bad girl or for girls the bad boy. Why am I looking where it's probably a wound and a lie identity? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, and that's where it all I think goes back to.
All points back to that identity and our woundedness. Like and just to use as an example, like because I think I learn better when I have someone say, here's a statement, here's a principle, here's a truth that we're putting forward. Here's an example that sort of supports and shows you how that truth works. So the truth that we're putting forward is, if you notice this unhealthy sort of pattern, or if you're confused by like your attraction to dysfunction, exploring that and understanding what's underneath it. So for me, the story of feeling on the outside looking in, like makes me sort of pine after those girls who are like, I don't know, the one who's just shooting everybody down, or like girls who just won't give me the time of day. And that's an unhealthy attraction, and it's repeated multiple times throughout my life, and it's caused me a ton of like pain along the way.
Yeah. And then we can, something that with my ex-girlfriend with the unattraction thing, and Christopher was telling me, it's made me not perfect, but when I see a woman who may kind of write me off, or not treat me well, how I should be treated, I now try to see her and wonder, and just like, okay, this isn't what's going on in her. What's her story that has led her to treat me this way, that has led her to write me off or be careless. It's like there's something within her I may not know, but I don't have to blame her or judge her. I can have more just like a merciful and compassionate like thought towards her when she comes up. Because when I judge her, if I just stop there at what she did to me, then I can believe stuff about myself and blah, blah, blah. Exactly. When in reality, it's like, okay, there's something more to the story.
Someone told me recently that it's that passage or that statement of Jesus's, "Judge not, lest ye also be judged." That also applies to self-judgment. Yeah. So if I'm judging you for something, I think the statement, it might be in the Four Agreements if you've read that book, but it's my perception of you is a reflection of me. So the way that I perceive you says a lot about what's going on in here.
And how you perceive yourself.
Exactly. You got it.
Yeah. That's interesting. It's very interesting.
The other thing that I was going to say too, just to piggyback off, like seeing someone for who they really are, and maybe taking into account, here's how like this person maybe has been broken or challenged by life or wounded by life. Saying, if I had lived the life that this person lived and been through what they've been through, I could easily be in that same position doing the exact same thing.
And it makes you like say, I get it. Okay, I get it now.
I get it.
I get it now. And it's, that's why we should never, ever judge. I mean, in a negative way. So like that's Jesus, where he's having dinner, I think, with the Pharisees, and Mary Magdalene, or I don't know if it's explicitly Mary Magdalene, but a woman is weeping at Jesus's feet and washing or wiping her hair, drying, his feet. And one of the Pharisees is like, does Jesus even know who this woman is and what she's done? And Jesus says, I think it's Simon, or like, do you see this woman? Do you see this woman? And that's how we need to live our life. It's, am I seeing them? Okay, they just hurt me. They betrayed me. They rejected me. Is my response going to be with my fist ups and blah, 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 and whining? Or is it like, no, I'm going to try to see what's really going on, even if I don't. But just recognize, like, it's not her fault. It's not his fault. What happened to them? Because this is... Dr. Bob Schutz with the John Paul II Healing Center says, wounded people wound people. So if someone wounds me, it's revealing to me that someone wounded them. And if that's how you see, that changes the way you're going to treat them after they wound you. But then he says, healed people. So if someone wounds me, someone hurts me, I have a choice. I can either be bitter and run, or I can learn to, it hurts, it sucks, but learn to embrace it. And like, that's Jesus on the cross opening to the wounds and the hurt. So,
There's an element, would you say that there's an element of forgiveness present in that as well?
So what I've learned from the JP2 Institute on healing is when you're wounded, two things. I don't know if I shared this with you before.
Okay.
But when you're wounded, say rejected, the evil one basically puts two types of gasoline on the fire of the wound. One gasoline is a lie. He whispers into that wound, "You're not wanted." The other gasoline, I don't know if gasoline's a good way to picture it. Another one is unforgiveness towards that person. And so how then you see them as, you owe me. you owe me. You hurt me, you
Look
owe
what
me.
you did to me.
Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, type of thing. Like, you hurt me, I hurt you. Like, but true healing of your own wound and true healing in your communion with that person is the lie needs to be renounced. I renounce that lie that I'm unwanted. That's not true. And in Jesus' name, I announce the truth, I'm wanted. That's the truth. And then the forgiveness part, you have to see what that person did to you, acknowledge the hurt and pain it caused you, and then you release them from the debt that they owe you. I forgive you. I release you. But it's taking account, you did hurt me. Because the whole idea of you hurt me, oh, no big deal.
No big deal, right.
It's like, no, big deal. Yeah. Big deal. But, and now I release you of that. That's huge. I know
because that is what gets us to the place where that's how we begin to heal this identity on the inside.
Yep.
That is so crucial to how we perceive and interact with the world. Is that right?
That's right. So Dr. Bob Schutz has a tree model.
Yeah.
So a tree is grounded and rooted in an identity.
Yep.
So that can either be an identity of love. I'm loved. I know who I am. I'm secure. And then it grows, and he calls that maturity.
Yep.
And then the fruit that comes out of the tree is purity. So that could be attractions, how we perceive people. What I'm attracted to is the fruit that comes out. And that's all an expression of what's going on in my roots. And that's identity. And so going back, okay, I'm attracted to the bad girl. This is what's coming out. It's a reflection. What's coming out expresses something that is deep and
down in the roots.
Yeah. And that's why Jesus says, clean the inside of the cup.
Yeah.
So that the outside may be clean. So if we want to begin to be attracted more purely or love more purely, we need our root system, our security.
It's to start there.
Yeah. That's where we need to start. Yeah.
It's so good to see this whole thing starting to come full circle. There's this, just to sort of summarize where we've been, and I feel like we've covered some really good ground. There's that identity system, that root system, where I'm aware of the wounds, I'm aware of the places that I've been hurt, and I'm working on releasing those, renouncing lies, and then forgiving those who have either aggravated those wounds or instigated those wounds.
That's right. And that's reoccurring. It's not like a one and done.
No. Yeah. But 100% right. And then from there, shifting our perception, really shifting to make sure that we're seeing like the composite of a person. Like, what are their values? Where has this person been? Where are they now? Like, is this person Catholic? Are they conservative? Like, do we align in those ways? Where is this person going? Goals for the future.
That's
right. There's values. There's also like their personality, their appearance. We're seeing the whole composite of the person, including their wounds. And then as we're coming back to attraction, now that my identity is healed, now that my perception is healed, I can make a truly informed decision as to, I really am attracted to this person. Or you're creating the conditions and cultivating the soil where true, holy, inspired attraction can take place. Is that right?
Yeah. Things become more clear.
Yes, 100%.
Well, I think, we just all need to know that we're broken and wounded, and we need others to help us.
Yes.
So, and that includes our attractions and our dating relationships. It's like, be on the journey of healing. Be on the journey of trying to do the right thing. That's what matters the most. If you seek, you find. If you knock on the door, it's going to be open. Yeah. But you got to be on the journey.
Brendan, I just really want to thank you again for hopping on and sharing so much wisdom. It's really good talking with you.
Yeah, it's been good talking to you too. Thanks for having me.